THORChain, for those who are uninitiated, is a decentralized exchange that enables you to swap Bitcoin with thousands of other cryptocurrencies, all layer one native tokens, no bridges or wrap tokens used. It's the real deal, and it's all within your self-custodial wallet. There's no KYC on THORChain. That means kill your customer. We do not do that. Let me make sure I get my co-host right. We don't do that. We don't like killing our customers. We love our customers. And it's also permissionless. THORChain's token is called RUNE. That is spelled R-U-N-E. You don't need to hold or buy RUNE in order to place a swap on THORChain. We don't like that. It's a good design decision by us. You can use it no matter what. However, the fees are deducted from your swap and are used to buy RUNE. And this RUNE is the yield that goes to liquidity pools and nodes. And there are no block rewards on THORChain. 100% of the yield is real. We also have another token called TCY, Tango Charlie Yankee. This is like a preferred stock, and 10% of the protocol's revenue goes to these token holders. If you deposited crypto into savers or took out a loan on THORChain, make sure to claim your TCY tokens. And if you're interested in this token, you can buy it as well. To swap on THORChain, go to swap.thorchain.org. One more time, swap.thorchain.org. And new features are going to be rolling out as well. So if you notice any bugs as well, it's kind of a new site. Please use that ticker to submit any bug reports. But so far, so good as far as I've heard. So use that interface, 0 affiliate fees. It's the best one there is, guys. Rujira is also building decentralized Binance on THORChain smart contract layer. It's being rolled out as we speak. And if you hold your RUNE on a centralized exchange like Binance, you need to withdraw into self-custody because they are using our tokens against us. Put it in self-custody, and when you do that, you should think about bonding your RUNE, and you can do that with runebond.org. You can click my profile right here and go to the website. You can communicate with a node operator. All you really have to do is find a node operator, request whitelist, and boom, bond your RUNE. You are in to go. There's a THORChain community Discord and Telegram you can join to learn all about THORChain and make lots of friends. To find the links, go to @THORCommunity on Twitter. You guys, please repost the space. You are listening to the recording, repost it anyway. This is going to be a banger. Chad is not in. No big deal, guys. And this is community, right? Everyone in here, this is a community one. So if anyone has any questions at all, please, you can come up. This is meant specifically for everyone here. You know, this is where we really do our community outreach. I think Saturdays have been relegated largely to, you know, specific guests, specific topics. And so, you know, it's not so open as it used to be. No big deal. So, but this is your time, guys. I'm a little out of the loop over the last 24 hours just because I've been just unbelievably sick. But, you know, we did have a little quirk after the Tron update. It wasn't necessarily related to Tron. It was more limit swaps. We had that slight, well, it wasn't slight. It was a consensus failure. But our banger devs in the community rose up, and we get that. We identified it, and we pushed a patch in like, what was like 2 or 3 hours. It's absolutely astonishing. And then the nodes adopt it very quick, all taken like within a day. That's what I've come to expect from this community. Just absolute legendary problem solvers. Tron has been going pretty well. I had a good space with them. It was about a week ago, I want to say. Really, I think made an impression with them. I'm really trying to get the Tron people interested in THORChain to know that they are now liberated, that I can swap permissionlessly. They're free. They're no longer going to be regulated or controlled. That's what we're all doing here. And they were blown away. I'll be planning a lot more spaces with them. Oh my gosh, Houdini swap. You want to come up here? I am so sorry. This is Patriot Sounds. If you don't know, I was so unbelievably sick. Shout out to Cal for stepping up and taking my spot. Unbelievably thankful to him. I have never done that before. So I just want you to know I am so sorry. That will probably hopefully never happen again. But I was incapacitated. I was so sick. Oh my gosh, you guys, I was a mess. Vomiting, diarrhea, the whole shebang. It was shakes, fever, pretty close to dying. So, you know, it's when you feel like you're going to die. I don't want to sound like a sissy, but woof, it was bad. So I'm really excited, Houdini swap, for our space come the 25th of October. It is going to be a banger, I promise you. I feel like I'm indebted to you. So we're going to make it an awesome one, I promise. Chad Barraford is in the house. You want to test your mic there, good sir?
Hey guys, how's it going?
Dude, it is going so well. Yeah, I gave an introduction. I briefly mentioned the limit swap thing, and then they had that slight consensus failure that was resolved really quickly by you guys. Super awesome job, as always. Well, I'm going to go ahead and kick it to you, Chad Bear B. If you have any, excuse me, any updates or anything you really want to get off your chest, and then we'll go right into it.
I don't think it's anything like really pressing in that sense. Let's go right into it.
Perfect. Perfect, man. So, guys, again, if you have any questions for Chad, please come on up. This is our time. There's a lot of good people in here. I love this when we really get to, go with the community. This is your time. So please come up. So the limit swap thing, let's break down a little bit more because I only, peripherally understand. We had that, we pushed the limit swaps. We had one test that done by Cal, and then we had the consensus fair. Maybe we can break that down a little bit for everyone.
Yeah, the funny thing is the that consensus failure was triggered by a division by zero bug in the code, and that bug was actually not in the limit swap code. It was actually in the old swap manager. Technically, that wasn't new code. That was part of the limit swap. That was old code. We just hit it in a new kind of way, in a matter of speaking. So that was kind of the interesting part of it. It wasn't that technically a bug in the limit swap code necessarily. It was just how we handled the old swap code, and one of the swaps has kind of got into like a mangled state, if you want to call it that, and it just kind of got into a division by zero situation. Easy to fix for the most part. We got that fixed out there as fast as possible. I think it was. I'm not sure how many hours it was actually down for, but it wasn't that many. Easy fix. We haven't turned it back on yet because we kind of felt like there's other kind of issues on the protocol, but specifically around like Binance Smart Chain was having some. It's been having like a huge increase in transaction volume on that particular chain, which has caused some performance related issues for our nodes to keep on the tip of that chain. So we wanted to kind of focus on the stability of the network first before we start trying to like throw on top new features or whatever. So we've been working hard on just making some performance improvements on the Bifrost to how we monitor the Binance Smart Chain chain, all the rest of the EVMs as well. And Ursa pushed out a really nice change that really improved the performance of the EVM chain monitoring for Bifrost. So we're on the road of recovery there. We're just waiting for all the nodes to get this new performance improvement. Once we're kind of on the tip of BSC, we'll probably resume churning and resume BSC to its full kind of glory, so to speak. And then once that happens, we can probably go ahead and re-enable limb swaps again.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, and like that's really cool because I know it was fixed super quick, that one consensus failure bug on. And it's funny as the old code, and that's one thing I talk about, guys, is it's so complicated. THORChain is a big beast, and sometimes you just never know where things are going to crop their ugly head. Okay, so once we have the limit swaps going, and let's assume there is no bugs, right? It seems to work pretty good. That's always the
Yep.
hope. What would be the time frame for rapid swaps thereafter?
I would usually put it about like maybe about like a month after. Like once we see a limit swap is like pretty good, I think like maybe I'm guesstimating like 30 days.
Perfect. Perfect. Yeah. Cool. That's very exciting. And you have maybe let's talk about Solana a little bit. Do you know where that is at all? In terms of, getting that going?
Yeah, we were just talking about this earlier today. The Solana code has been merged already into the Bifrost, which is good. What it requires, the next step is to kind of build a stage net with Solana and test it out. One of the kind of like interesting things here, a little bit oddities about this particular instance, is that I don't think a lot of validators will run their own Solana instance. They'll like hire some service provider to provide a Solana instance, just because Solana is like oddly expensive to run. Like I think you need like a terabyte of memory or something crazy like this, half a terabyte or a terabyte, whatever it is. So just the system resources required is quite expensive, and so it might make more economic sense to run it off of some service provider. So I think the idea that we were talking about earlier was that we'll run StageNet with a service provider. And we'll probably test like two or three or so just to make sure two or three are working. And then once those like testing is done on StageNet, and we feel good about it, we can go ahead and roll it out to mainnet. What time frame that will be? It's hard to say. I would say 30 to 60 days if I'm gonna guess at it. Part of the complexity though is that like as you get closer to December and November, you get kind of holiday season coming up, Thanksgiving and Christmas and all these kind of things. So people have less time in their hands in a sense. But I'm hoping we can get it done before the end of the year.
Yeah, that's totally understandable. And I hope it's at the end of the year too. But like you said, it's really expensive, and again, guys, for those who don't know, it's all layer one, so real, and Solana is a wicked fast, chain.
Right.
In terms of like on the providers, so if like I'm a node operator, let's just say one goes down, is there going to be a quick redundancy, or is it like how does that work? Or they if it goes down, they're kind of SOL until they get caught back up? Could you break that down a
Um,
little bit?
yeah, that's good. Interesting. So I don't think there's anything in the code in terms of like failover concepts. You can always, if it goes down, you can always just, configure a different provider and then carry on. But I don't think there is any current code that actually does like an automated kind of failover thing. We don't think we'd support that at this particular time, although it might be something we add at the future at some point. Um, so I don't think there's an automatic failure, but I think there is. You can just configure a different provider at that point. But you have to get like another. If you have to go to that second provider, you have to open an account, pay your $50 a month or whatever the cost is to support another provider for that failover time, or just wait until your provider that you already have gets their shit together and gets back online themselves.
Right, right. Okay, interesting. Yeah, that was more or less a question for me because I was thinking about that because it's such an intense change. So I'm really excited to see how it goes. Okay, we got let's see here. We got With the Coke up here. Welcome With the Coke. And then shout out to the people in the audience. We got Paul, Houdini Swap, of course. We've got Baloney Bones. What's going on, Baloney Bones? Happy to see everyone in here. Thanks for everyone showing up. What do you got with us with the Coke? Go ahead, test your mic there, buddy.
Check, check, 1 2 1 2.
No,
Hello.
you're good, man. Go for it.
That, that's good. That's good. I hope you feel better, Patriot. So I actually, I have a question, kind of related with Solana, or maybe not. But we had a node operator last week who is operating like 10 nodes or something like that, and his ETH RPC node was failing, hardware issue, and I mean 10 nodes were offline,
Mhm.
and what can we do to mitigate that risk? Of course, he's now looking for more redundancy when it comes to RPC providers. Can he actually like let's say like I'm not that tech savvy, so that's why I'm here and asking you. Like let's say his RPC goes down with ETH, can he hook up with I don't know some other node operators RPCs to just bootstrap to get going again fast, or how can he like mitigate the risk?
Well, um, from the protocol's perspective, he doesn't really matter, even running 10 nodes, because 10 nodes going offline doesn't cause the network to stop functioning, right? Or this particular chain that was a problem for him. We require a two-thirds majority of kind of validation before we see something as a real thing from the protocol's perspective. So if we've got like 100 and whatever the number is, 115 nodes now, whatever the number is, and 10 of them are offline for some EVM chain or whatever it is, the protocol itself doesn't really give a shit, to be honest with you. It's like the protocol itself is the redundancy, because if your node is down, then my nodes are up, and if Patriot Sound's nodes are down, then somebody else is up, and so as long as a two-thirds majority or 67% of the nodes are up and monitoring and on the tip of whatever chain we're talking about, then there's really no problem. But for that operator who's got 10 nodes, if he's got a chain that goes down, then he's going to start getting slashed effectively because he can't make observations, and the network will take away the revenue of per block that he's not observing. He gets 2 blocks of slash. So the income he's making, he's actually getting like 2x negative income, so to speak, for the whatever time period that his nodes are not observing. So it's really like a calculus to the individual operator to determine, like, is that risk of downtime worth the additional costs of running a second kind of daemon, or having paying a service like a monthly fee to some service provider. That's an individual kind of choice that an individual operator kind of makes for themselves, and they can do their own calculation and come to their own conclusions.
Okay, that was a good answer. Okay, I understand.
Yeah.
Is somebody from the network side or the protocol side, community side, looking different node operators, just assessing the risk? Okay, at the moment he had only 10 nodes, and he was doing actually like the past year, he was doing really good marketing. He's actually, I'm bond providing with him. He's doing an excellent job as a bond provider,
Mhm.
helping us out, lowering fees to zero if he's out of the churn and stuff like that. So let's say he gets like a more of the network, like 1/3 of the network. Is somebody looking at the network, assessing the risk of the network? Like maybe somebody gets to dominate and something similar happens.
Yeah. So if you have a single operator, right, who's running, a 1/3 plus one of the nodes, so that would be like 30. I don't know what the number is, 36, 37 nodes, something like this. Currently, there's nobody that runs that many nodes. I think Nine Realms is the largest operator by a good margin. I don't know how many nodes I run off the top of my head, but I think they are. The last I heard, they were the largest operators. So nobody is there quite yet. But you can kind of figure out to some degree how many nodes a single operator runs, because you can see the operator like Thor address in then each node, so you can see how many nodes a single person is operating. um it's definitely something of concern, and we obviously I would publicly and publicly say that, like, nobody should be running 1/3 plus one of the nodes. It's just bad for the protocol, I would say. But if you are somebody who's running like a large segment, 10, 20, 30 nodes, whatever it is, then it probably makes sense in your particular instance to run duplicate daemons, just to ensure that you're, always up and that kind of thing. And doing that in a way that's, and you have to get really performant drives, like a lot of memory, very fast rewrite speeds of your disks to kind of be fast in response to API requests to those daemons. So like if you're really gonna run that many nodes, which is obviously like you're running like 30 plus $1 million, $40 million worth of Rune, you should know what the fuck you're doing and be a professional at running infrastructure and Kubernetes infrastructure and servers and this kind of thing. B, I would recommend that person to be running their nodes on bare metal and on not a hosted infrastructure of any kind. And I would even say that a bare metal hosted bare metal I would stay away from. It's much cheaper, much more effective to run it yourself in your own data center at some point, someplace in the world. But I would say you'd have to be very good at running nodes if you're going to run that many nodes.
That's excellent. Actually, that's why I love those streams, Patriot. Amazing setting up, amazing chat for attending the streams as well, the spaces. And I actually learned something just right now. I didn't know that the Nine Realms is running the most of. I didn't know that Nine Realms has the biggest bunch of the nodes that they're running. Is there any specific reason why they have the most, and is there any risk associated with that? Let's say they no longer is going to be a developer of the THORChain, and yeah, can you elaborate more like this?
Sure.
About
I
that?
mean, I think they're the biggest because they're the closest team to the dev team. And I think that proximity to the original dev team is kind of like good advocate as an operator in a manner of speaking. I think that's primarily the reason why, more than any other reason that I can think of. Maybe they have connections or relationships with large scale investors into Rune. That's totally a reasonable reason why that might be. Um, Nine Realms obviously is highly aligned to the project. Outside of the core team, there's probably no group of people that are more highly aligned to the project in a sense. I think that's a pretty good reason unto itself. If the day came where they kind of like shut their doors, so to speak, and they wanted to not stop being node operators, I don't see that happening. I don't have any reason to believe that would happen, but hypothetically it did happen, then they would speak to myself and JP. They'd speak to maybe Kenton, another example, and other members of the community, and say, hey, we got to unroll these 36 nodes. Who can we roll them to? And I think we actually have recently added a new feature into the protocol that was not really met with much fanfare because it's not really that big of a deal from a community perspective. But the ability to actually move your bond from one node to another one in a single transaction, rather than like unbonding and and like moving is and then like rebonding and like this kind of rigmarole, the kind of dance you have to do. So it's even easier to migrate people from one node to another if we needed to. So I'm not terribly worried about that scenario. You know, if that were to happen, like other people would step up and provide the infrastructure to support that many nodes.
So who owns the bonded runes? Is it Nine Realm, or is it the treasury? Is it the protocol?
I think it's a mixture. I don't know. I mean, I'm not a part of the Nine Realms team myself, and I'm not part of their like I'm not in their Discord or their Slack, whatever it is. So I don't really have an answer to your question. What I've gathered from like secondary hearing is that it's some of it's Nine Realms, some of it's investors, some of it might be from the treasury as well. I don't really know, but I think it's a mixture of things.
Amazing. Okay, that's interesting. That's interesting. Learning something about THORChain every day. I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to learn as much as possible. You know.
Yeah,
And
keep
like,
asking questions, man. Keep
I'm
asking
community.
questions.
I'm community member. There is like we always have those tough situations like since the January, and it always like exposes like the new angles of the protocol. As a like a patriot, as a believer of like a decentralized swaps, I think it's crucial for the decentralized crypto. A lot of people don't understand. They
Yep.
cruciate us. They don't understand. Just wanna bully us, but it's like Bitcoin back in days. Like everybody used to bully Bitcoin. Like, oh, it's bad for bad for everything. Yeah, but it's
Right.
actually not. It gives
Yeah.
us freedom.
Yeah, I agree. It's just, and I appreciate these are good questions to ask, by the way. So keep asking. Like, I think we've always strived to be as transparent as we can. The only time we withhold information from the community is when it puts the protocol at risk. You know, like for example, if somebody tells us about an exploit on the protocol, we don't make that public information for obvious reasons. We want to patch whatever that bug is, whatever. But for like 99% of the time, we try to be as transparent as possible. That's partially why we actually even moved like all the dev discussion off of private channels. Like we don't even really have a private channel anymore between like me and the rest of the devs. Like everything we say for the most part is in Discord at this point. I can't think of anything off the top of my head that we haven't had like a private channel for like a long time now that I can recall at least. So we try to be as public as we can and transparent as we can with the community on all things.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. And like let's say somebody wants to dive deeper about the nine realms and the bonded rune that they have. Where can they start to look into it? See the agreements between the different companies, different identities, because clearly there is some kind of deals made, and it's supposed to be decentralized network. So you
Yeah,
want to dive deep and make like
I'm not aware of like deals made or whatever. Like to be honest, I'm not that close to Nine Realms where I'm apprised to individual deals being made or not made. Like I actually don't even know the answer to your question. But if you want to know the answer to that question, like I would reach out to the Nine Realms team, to like somebody like Simon or Randy who are high up within the Nine Realms hierarchy, and they can kind of answer the questions to what they think is right within the context of Nine Realms perspective.
Yeah, the only reason why I love the protocol. I love what we do. I love the team. I love the Patriot, Kate Canton, everybody. And I think where we kind of maybe didn't deliver as a protocol as a whole as good as we should was the onboarding of Rujira. The ADR that wasn't that clear. The Rujira team had their they had like the idea that they were onboarded with certain deals, and kind of JP closed the deal behalf of the network. So that's why I'm asking that.
Sure. Yeah. To be honest, I wasn't even involved with the project at that particular time, so I don't
I
even
know.
But these are fine. Like these are reasonable questions to ask, and feel free to like. Sorry, I don't have an answer for you, but you feel free to ask. JP or Ruji or Nine Realms, whoever you think is the best to answer those kinds of questions, and they'll do the best they can to answer them. But I don't think I have the answer for you.
Yeah, I know. Okay, that's all from me. I'll keep recording the space, and I'll let somebody else to take lead.
Sure.
Yeah. Thanks with the Coke. And yeah, this is an open floor. People who are just coming in right now, anyone come up and ask questions. We love that. And yes, with the Coke, I am feeling slightly better today. I'm actually a little nervous because I've got so many tissue boxes on my desk here. I'm thinking, and it's right by a window. Like someone looks in, they're going to think I'm a chronic consumer of pornography or something. I don't know, but I'm not feeling very glamorous today. But you know, I think I'm okay. So you know, I'll live. Um, it was bad, you guys. It was bad. Man, I you know, had well, yeah, it's a little gross. I don't know if I'm gonna get into it. Maybe I won't. I'm gonna leave that alone. But man, it was that was pretty low for me, I gotta say.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, guys. So yeah, let's see here. We got that. Okay. All right, so Solana. So for those who know Solana, hopefully within 2 months, but then again, December, that's coming up holiday season. That might get kicked back a little bit. Do we got anything? I know I saw on Rujira. That's why I really want Rujira devs in here too, right? It looks like they're getting really moving on lending. They found a really interesting novel solution. Like how are you up to date with the Rujira devs at all? What they're building over there? How's that communication looking?
I used to be. We used to have like a weekly meeting between me and them, and I haven't been in those meetings for I don't know, maybe like a month or so. You know, they're on their kind of like own path in a sense, and I obviously encourage them, and I'm here to support them in any way, any reasonable way I can, with any kind of changes to the base protocol, whatever. But I've been trying to spend most of my time focused on what I'm trying to get done, which is limit swaps and rapid swaps and memeless and other kind of major features downstream, just so I can get these things shipped and guys in a good status. Like I don't want to be, leading them in any kind of way. I want them to be their own kind of team. And I'm here to support them. If they ever need anything from me, I'm like readily available to them. But I'm not trying to keep my finger on their pulse because I have my own roadmap to worry about.
Oh yeah, of course. And with the advancements now, they can pretty much ship their own thing right now. So they are kind of pushing their own destiny right now. But
Yeah,
looking
which is
really
great. Like,
exciting.
it's
Yeah.
much more efficient and faster for them to do that. Like if I had to be a part of their process and at every step of the way, I probably would just slow it down to some degree. But I'm obviously still here if they have any questions or they want to ask my advice on X, Y, or Z. Like I'm totally here.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's talk about the what's the word I'm looking for? Optimizations. Thank you. Thank you, Brain. The optimizations of THORChain. We've talked about in the past, it's been a little bit. We talked about 2-second block times, making optimizations, with the inner workings of THORChain Bifrost. Is that still a ways away, or how's that looking?
Yeah, we were pushing the whole 2-second block times for a while. We had the code done. It actually got merged and then it got unmerged for reasons. So it's been kind of like a 1 foot in, 1 foot out kind of thing. The push for it largely was to make the app layer faster, more than anything else. For like, it's really good to have fast block times for like perpetuals, for example, for like hyperfast like trading. I think what we kind of settled on was that there was talk about creating kind of like an optimized kind of second node that can give you like intra block or like inside of one block the state of the network, in a matter of speaking. So you could trade with that secondary kind of like you could kind of call it like an L2, but it's not technically an L2. It's kind of this weird kind of middle ground thing, rather than making changes to the protocol itself. Because if you reduce the block time to 2 seconds on THORChain, it's more complicated than it sounds because there's a lot of like functionality of the protocol that's based upon how many blocks. Like take churn for example. Like churns every I think like I forget how many blocks it is, but it's basically close to like 3 days. And if you were to go from 6-second blocks to 2-second blocks, you go to like 1 day churns. So you need to change like all the memirs that are relative to block time. And there's always like an opportunity to get that wrong or miss one. And that could create unusual or unexpected behavior, which could cause some problems, or like some bugs or, some sort of issues. And on top of that, like as the faster your block times get in general, the more unstable a blockchain is because it's a lot easier to kind of miss a block or whatever it is. So there's this kind of like an interesting debate of like there's more stability of the base protocol at 6 seconds than would be at 2 seconds, I would think. And that's the reason why I'm a little bit hesitant on the 2-second block time thing. It's still there. We could do it if we wanted to do it, but this doesn't seem like to be like a strong drive for that within the dev community. I think we're more interested in doing functionality or adding features that would be more indicative to like a higher volume through the protocol, like rapid swaps, like limit swaps, like memeless, like adding more chains and like doing intents or something like this to kind of create a lot more volume in the protocol rather than like just faster block times. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Does it also make sense? Like, because I understand going from 6 seconds to 2 seconds, that's kind of a big jump. If we were a little apprehensive, does it make sense at all? Maybe just go from like 6 seconds to 5 seconds, then to 4, like to gradually step down. Would that make
Um,
sense? Or
I think that would be even more difficult in some ways, as odd as that sounds. Well, the dev that worked on this, he was actually part of the Strangelove team. That would be a better question for him than me, to be honest. He's much more in the weeds in this particular aspect of the stack than I am. But I would think it's like it doesn't really matter if you go to 6 to 5 or 6 to 2. Whatever the bug is that creates the potential bug that exists that would cause some sort of like problem would exhibit itself at either place. Although maybe it's more the bug would be more extreme at 2 seconds than would be 5. It's hard to know. We'd all be just be kind of making our best guess, to be honest with you. We wouldn't really definitively know the answer to that question. But I think that dev would probably give you probably a deeper and better answer to that question than I'm capable of doing.
yeah, it totally makes sense. And well, like the way that THORChain works, like the average is 6 seconds. That's not like set in stone, right? So like if
Yeah.
like heavy throughput, it can be longer than that. So can the optimizations on THORChain just make the block time quicker, just in lieu of the fact that it's more optimized, and we're not changing any or is 6 seconds like the minimum, if you know what I'm saying?
Um, I don't think there's necessarily a minimum. It just the tendency is that we create a block every 6 seconds, you know. But the funny thing is, like once you go into rapid swaps territory where you can execute like large trades in a single block in theory, the need for 2-second blocks kind of goes down, right? Because you don't need to wait, um, you know, um, 5 minutes to do a larger trade or whatever it is. You can do it theoretically in a single block or maybe a couple blocks, whatever. So whether it's 6-second block or 2-second blocks, it probably wouldn't matter as much. So it goes back to the thing of like, if we do get 2-second blocks, like what is the actual value back to the protocol? Like what is the benefit that we get as a protocol by doing so? And I think most of the benefit really goes towards the app layer than it does to the base layer. And I think the base layer kind of might take a hit in some ways because it might be a little less stable in that scenario, you know. But again, there's like new things being done in the Cosmos world. There's a new kind of like consensus layer that's being built. I forget the name of it. Um, what the hell's the name of that thing? I don't think I can remember what it was. Where there's like they're doing like something a lot like the transaction per second has been like it's like increasing by like 50x or something crazy like this. I don't know the exact number. I'm trying to remember, but so there's like opportunities in the future too with a kind of a restructuring of the base Cosmos chain that could make things more efficient. There's like work being done that could be valuable into the future. I just think for right now, going to 2 seconds wouldn't generate that much benefit to the protocol. I think it's much more beneficial to focus on major features like limit swaps, for example, and rapid swaps, because I think that's gonna measurably and meaningfully increase the volume and capital efficiency of the protocol than just going down 2 seconds.
Yeah, I think I agree with that for sure. With the Coke, go ahead. You got your hand up.
Yeah, Chad mentioned volume twice. That's what I like to hear. Like for exactly what Chad said, like getting the block time down from 6 to 2, it is good for the app layer, but necessarily it doesn't improve the volume for the THORChain.
Right.
And I guess it's like a question or like for example, rapid swap is an excellent idea to improve the network. Again, we used to have 200 million volume per day, and now we're kind of leveling about 20 million. And rapid swaps is only useful when we have a lot of volume. Then we can like those swaps done in a one block. But if you don't have a lot of volume, the rapid swap doesn't help us that much. So
Well, I'm not
what
sure
it,
if I'd agree with you on that, because rapid swaps should, in effect, should create like a pairing between an R bot and somebody doing some sort of swap, right?
yeah,
And instead of that swap taking, let's call it like 30 seconds, it takes like 6 seconds, right? A single block. That means that the ARB is arbing that transaction, in 1/5 or 1/6, whatever the number is, time, which means that they can get their capital back out faster, go through a centralized exchange to move the funds back to the other side, so they can, arb that other side again. And so they can just do that a lot faster. So it should just make arbs a lot faster in theory, so that things get traded faster. Arbs can get their capital back into the system as fast as possible without having to wait, 30 seconds or whatever the hell the number might be. So it just makes the kind of pools a lot like stickier, in terms of like the pool price a lot stickier, which should mean that like that gives us better price execution. And by that standard, it might increase, volume in that sense. But we don't really know that. This is a reasonable guess that I'm making. This is what I think might happen. Whether I'm right or wrong, we'll find out, over the next like 3 months or 6 months or so. But I think it's, even though our volume isn't 200 million a day like it was, during the bull market or whatever, I still think this feature will be meaningful and add a good value to the protocol.
yeah, of course, I would say it's the feature. Of course, it's helpful. It's somewhat groundbreaking, near, and the chain flip doesn't have it. But is it going to drive the new volume to the THORChain? Because at the moment, correct me if I'm wrong, but most of the volume that we get is coming from the aggregators. And
Yeah, that's right. A good chunk of them are coming from the aggregators. That's true. But when you have a pool that's stickier, you get better price execution. So whereas when you have an arbitrage bot that is kind of arbitraging passively, so they have to push the pool price to an incorrect price, in a matter of speaking, and then start arbitraging. Like that can create kind of slightly worse quotes, or actually in some cases that can create slightly better quotes, depending upon which direction the pool is being pushed. But when the pool price is a bit stickier because you have proactive arbs instead of reactive arbs, that should create more volume. Is it going to be like 100% more volume? Yeah, probably that. It's not going to be like that much, but it should, in my opinion, should create more volume because it's just more capital efficient.
yeah, but when we had like a 1 basis point price for the swaps, I didn't see like getting all the volume from chain flip and near. So
Well, we
why
we
that?
went up to like, we were like at 80% dominance when we did that, right? Like when we put it to 25 bips, I think we sank to like, I think it was like 30 or 40% dominance in the market, something like this, if I remember correctly. There's a dashboard that shows this. I think it's on Rune Tools, Rune.tools, whatever that one is, the dashboard is. But when we switched it to one bip, we kind of went up to like 80% dominance. So, quoting price obviously it does have an effect on, aggregators like SwapKit, for example. So you do get more volume, and I think we did see that relative to the rest of the market. Do we get a lot? We didn't get a lot of fees collected, obviously, because 1 bips is not that much fee collection and fees. But that's why we're doing this whole experimentation around like changing the fee model from 1 bip to 5 bip to 10 to 15 to 25, and we're just kind of like collecting data and information so that we can all make a much more informed decision about what the best is for the protocol, rather than everybody having their personal theories. We can have actual raw data, to
Yeah, I
better
understand.
inform us.
Yeah, I get you where you're coming from. I think I don't know exactly. Was it the end of the September or was it the middle of the September when we had the 1 basis point? But I remember I was like a hawk looking the charts. I was looking the THORChain.net. I was looking the
Mhm.
chain flip. I was looking the Dunes dashboard for the near.
Yep.
And what I saw was that we didn't take the majority of the aggregated swaps to our side. I'm not sure if I'm missing something out. Maybe the cow will give us a report afterwards.
Yeah,
But
Kyle's gonna be doing that. He's the one that's kind of running this test, and he's been collecting the data, and he'll do he'll give a report
yeah,
to the
yeah,
community whenever he's done. But if you go to like rune.tool/dominant, that's I think that's Kyle's actually. He's the one that built this dashboard, I believe. And then there's a little market dominance thing in this kind of view of the world, so to speak. You can get it doesn't really show you in this chart like what the BIP fee was at any particular time. I think there's another one. If you go to I'm gonna mispronunciate this, but
yeah. I
LeoDex.net
know.
is another
Yeah,
one.
yep, yep.
That
Well,
one's
I
got
was
some really good.
interesting because I was looking. I was looking and as a like my like a purple gargles on, and I was like hoping like oh boy, we get the 95% of the volume now, but we didn't.
Yeah.
So maybe that's my question for you is
Yep.
that let's say we lower the fee to one pip again.
Yep.
Why can't we outperform all the chain flip and near quotes? Okay, let's say okay, near they maybe overpay or they subsidize the swaps, but why can we totally like cannibalize the chain flip volume and it didn't happen?
Yeah. But there's a reason for that. And there's a term for it. And I forget the actual name for that. There's an actual technical term for it. But when you have a market that is perfectly efficient, right? That there are no flaws, that information and knowledge, that everybody knows every bit of information, everybody knows all the knowledge and information. Then in that scenario where you have like a perfectly efficient market, then yes, then what would happen is we would go to one basis fee and we would collect 99% of all the volume in that hypothetical scenario. But the market isn't perfectly efficient. There's like, people trade with what they're comfortable with, not with like they might just, trade with near because they're just comfortable using near. And they don't even know that the fee on THORChain is at 1 BIP and it's no longer at 15 bips or whatever the number might be. And so like that lack of
Yeah,
of information efficiency creates opportunity for people to use the less optimal or less cheap options in the market, right? Or maybe they did know that THORChain was 1 BIP in that particular day, but they didn't care because they fucking hate THORChain because THORChain sucks or whatever. Like that's just their mentality, and there's big giant near
yeah,
fans
yeah.
or chainful fans, whatever. So the market psychology comes to place, and there's like information parity or information kind of flow of information and knowledge that is not optimized. um it's a difficult thing for us as a protocol to kind of combat in some ways, right? Like if you think about like Android versus iOS, right? Everybody in the world, pretty much anybody who is going to have a cell phone basically has a cell phone, right? Like if you're an elderly person, you're not going to get a cell phone now. Maybe if you're a kid, you get your first phone, you're 13, 15 years old, whatever. But generally speaking, like everybody in the world has a phone who has a phone, right? Who's going to have a phone. And then it becomes like there's no market to go after there. It just becomes like entrenchments. But people like, I'm just an iOS fan, and you're an Android fan, or vice versa, or whatever. And then it becomes like the entire kind of marketing system of Android and iOS is just about parity with the other people, the other things. So like whenever Apple launches a new feature or Android launches a new feature, Apple will copy them or Android will copy Apple because you're just trying to like maintain like feature parity with each other. Like Apple just announced a new phone where they have this new like center stage, selfie camera that can do landscape and portrait, and it auto flips in both directions, which is a really neat feature. And like, I will almost guarantee you right now that like the next Android phone will just literally rip that feature out. And Apple's done the same thing with like, colorized home screens, right? That was totally an Android thing. Apple just copied it in iOS 17 or 16, whatever the hell the version was. It's like a
Yeah,
common thing to happen.
I totally agree. I totally agree where you're going with your discussion. But the thing is that the most volume comes through aggregators. So the aggregators are not like Android or Apple fanboys who will decide on emotions. It's if anything
Yeah.
goes through aggregators,
So
it's just pure math. So why didn't we get majority of the volume?
Well,
Or
Oleg
do,
just just jumped on stage, and maybe he has a better and more deeper answer than I can give you.
yeah, let's go.
Hey everyone, hey Chad, hey
Hey.
with the Coke. Yeah, I don't have much time and I don't have data readily available to share, but I just want to bring a little bit of color of what I know. And yeah, so a couple of things. Why wouldn't THORChain dominate and take all the volume from the other providers when it drops to 1 bips? A couple of reasons. First of all, near intense is at 1 bip. So the competition might be hard in a market, and it might not stay that way for forever, but I think it actually might be even less than 1 bip. I think they take really a very small fraction. So yes, it is currently being subsidized, but that's the reality of it, where THORChain at 1 bip is competing with near intense that is currently at 1 bips and also subsidizes partially some of the gas fees, especially on the more expensive chains like Tron. So that's one thing. Second thing, from my perspective, there aren't that many partners that have both THORChain and Near Intense. From what we've seen, and I don't know if everyone knows me, I work at SwapKit and we drive a lot of volume to both THORChain and the Near ecosystem. And I can only think of Trust Wallet and THORSwap, which have sort of THORChain and Near competing for every quote. So the asset overlap there. Another thing that I can think of is for the past month, to be honest, the market has just been pretty hot with a lot of volume. So a lot of the volume going to near intense is actually coming from chains or assets that THORChain does not support. So Solana and Tron, we've seen a lot of traction for those. So I know Tron just launched. Solana, I know, is still in the plans. So likely they will catch up there, but that's also one of the contributing factor of why Near maintained such high volumes during the 1 basis point period. Also, I can notice on Ledger, we did notice that we were getting a lot more volume. And this is a provider that currently only have an integration with THORChain and for CrushChain, mostly centralized providers. And we did see a massive uptick. So that means, just to give an example, that means THORChain took volume from Changely. You can't see that into dashboards because Changely is private and centralized, and they don't publish their volume numbers. So it might not be apparent, but in that regard, I just know from looking at month over month and just knowing how much of the share of the ledger swapping volume THORChain had, that THORChain definitely increased in share a lot when it was at 1 bip. And the final point I want to give is that even regardless of the fee that THORChain charges at the protocol level, it still only outputs one single price point. That's because of its liquidity model. There are 2 assets in the pool. They give a single price, and that's it. On intense-based protocol or even other protocols, there can be multiple prices at one time, at one point in time, basically. So that completely skews the results. And regardless of the price or the protocol fee that THORChain wants to charge, if its pool is imbalanced or if multiple prices exist on the market, they can kind of beat THORChain both ways. So those are kind of the reason why I would think THORChain, even at 1 bips, just because of its current liquidity model, it won't dominate everything.
Yeah, that goes to what I was saying earlier about with limit swaps, we have like proactive arbitrage bots that keep the price at a stickier place rather than drifting away at some price or number, whatever it is.
But even then, even if they are super fast and perfectly efficient, if THORChain is priced at 110K on THORChain and it's available at slightly cheaper and slightly higher on different venues, those prices can be both exposed on a protocol like Near Intense. Currently, THORChain can only support one
Oh, right.
price at a time.
Right. No, that's true. That's true. That's why we've been talking about adding intents to the protocol, mainly for the long tail assets, not so much for the Bitcoin. But there wouldn't be any limitations on that to limit to only those non-pool assets.
Hey,
Yeah,
Oleg,
thank you,
thanks for
Oleg, for that insight. I have a question about the intents because intents went from like 20 million daily, like a high side of the volume to 100, to 80, and then now pacing out at 40 million. So does the intent, near intent, only use like a SwapKit as a provider, or they have their own other I don't know, front ends where they accumulate the more the volume, because it is quite high to go from 20 to 40. It's because at the moment THORChain is at 20, the chain flip is at 20, and now all of the blue near intent went to 40 million per
Yeah, I
day.
don't want to distract too much from the THORChain space. So just the position near is really much a competitor in terms of it's a different protocol than THORChain, and it's a we can say competitor or complementary depending on where you sit. And for the recent rise, I think it is mostly due to Zcash, which near intent support, and I think it's been a pretty hot asset right now. So yeah, that I think that explains the very recent surge in volume on near intents. But I'll leave it to more THORChain centric topics.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean,
okay. When you
have
check the Zcash, it's only 4 million. So it cannot go from 20 to 40, because from the Toon dashboard, because you can see it's like 4 million per day or even less, like 1.9. But
yeah the ZE. I'm looking at the near intense dashboard right now on Doom, and it's ZEC is at about 4 million in the last 24 hours of their volume. So it's almost doing the same amount of volume as Bitcoin for them, or even Ethereum. Like Ethereum, Bitcoin, ZEC, Sol, and BNB are almost all at the same ratio. Like it's at like 9.8, 9.7, 9.2, 8.6, and 7.5 in terms of volume. Well, like stables is like basically almost half their volume is from stables.
Well, thank you very much, Oleg, for coming up. That's just invaluable insight to have someone, just an OG like from SwapKit, to come in and tell us and break that all down. So I really appreciate you doing that, man. And then I think this is another argument too, to have for THORChain to have its own front end as well, right? I mean, we haven't even begun marketing yet. We're still in the beta phase. And this will help THORChain as well when it comes to yield, and also we add more primitives as well. So it's just a healthy ecosystem, and more competition is coming. Oleg, is there anything else that you got? Well, I mean, I don't, it's okay if, you're a little off topic. It's no big deal. Is there anything else you come to mind? Because, we haven't had you on a space, I don't think, in a while. So you're a very knowledgeable member. Is there anything else you want to chat about while we got you up here?
No, I actually have to drop very soon, but really excited for Tron and Sol and all the next upcoming chains for THORChain, and really looking forward as well to Order Book. We saw it got briefly enabled, so we're on the lookout on what's possible to build on top of that. Thanks, guys.
Hey, thanks, brother. I appreciate you coming up. Okay, guys, we're gonna go around again. If anyone has any questions or anything, please request and come up. Chad, how much time do you have? I don't want to make sure that I strung you out for the first space we have here.
No, I can probably give you another hour. If you like.
Okay. Oh, that's plenty of time. Damn. Thank you for being so generous with your time. So when it comes to like rapid swaps, because I remember you were talking about like this, it's a pseudo L2, where you can see the intra block data. Does that in any way have any I'm sorry?
That's not really relating to rapid swaps, to be honest. That's more like an abstraction layer for the app layer to use for hyper fast, trading or whatever. To give you like kind of like similar to like Hyperliquid has very fast, like experience from a UI from a UX perspective. It's really intended more for that scenario of like being able to have like hyper fast trading on top of the app layer rather than the base layer.
Now, just make sure I understand. So that's trading, like that gives them insight into THORChain's base layer, right? In the pool. So that just helps with like price execution. Is my understanding correct?
I think it's more complicated than that. I think a lot of that is going into I would presume they're not going too much into the base layer in that scenario. They're more just like trading within the app layer itself and the other transactions within the app layer. I would presume they're not doing things on the base layer, but to be honest, I'm not 100% certain about that.
Okay, interesting. That clears up in my brain. Awesome.
Yes.
Okay, so we got that. Also, okay, well, we were talking about the node operators here. We're talking about infrastructure. And I'm sorry, I've got such a foggy brain right now. Chad, don't you have another project you're working on that's like related to this or something? About, maybe I'm totally botching this, but like a decentralized like provider platform or something like that. Am I right about that?
Yeah, I started that. I co-founded it a couple of years ago, 2-3 years ago, with John and Michael from Shapeshift. I stepped back from that project as well. When I stepped back from THORChain, I was just dealing with some things in my personal life that was quite difficult, and I just didn't have the energy to kind of invest into much at that time. So I haven't been involved in the project for quite some time. It's called Archeo if anybody wants to look it up and kind of research it, but I haven't been involved for quite a while.
Okay. Do you foresee, like, for THORChain's future? Now, I don't know if it'll be Archeo or something else. But do you foresee that being, is that like an attack vector for us that would be gone away forever? We can decentralize that process?
Um, I don't know. I mean, I would suspect because of the volume of interactions we do with, our daemons, it'd probably be more economical for a validator to run their own daemon rather than pay somebody else to run the daemon for them. It'd be, I think it'd be make more financial sense. It's the same thing with like Apple came out with their own like Apple, process like the M1 and the M2 and this kind of thing, for example. Like they produce so many phones that it became economical, it made economic sense for them to produce their own chips rather than pay, Intel or TSMC, whatever it is, to produce their chips for them. I think it's more like that. You could do it if you wanted to, pay some provider on Archeo to run your daemons for you. On paper, you could. That's totally a viable and possible choice. Whether people do that or not is more of an individual choice by each individual validator. If it was me, I think I wouldn't do it personally. I think I would just run my own infrastructure, just because I like to maintain control, so that I know everything's copacetic. And if there's a problem, I can go ahead and fix it. And if I want redundancy, I can do that. Blah blah blah. Or I might just pay somebody on Archeo on a pay-as-you-go basis to be like a failover. That's one of the things. The nice thing with Archeo is you can pay as you go as one of the options to pay for like access to data, rather than like a monthly fee. So you don't have to pay for it 99% of the time, and then that time that your daemon goes down or blows up or whatever the hell happens, you can have this like failover system where it just starts querying and you pay for it like per request. But it might make sense in that scenario to do it that way because you don't want to lose the yield for that block that you're producing. So it depends on, again, like it depends on every validator to make their own choices for themselves, whether they want to run their own infrastructure or pay somebody else to run it for them.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. And initially, like, I thought, like, I was thinking of an idea earlier. It's like, well, what if the protocol, kind of like how we subsidize, or not subsidize, we pay like the developers on Nine Realms, or to run the protocol. If you would maybe like do an additional like fee where you subsidize the pain of decentralized infrastructure like Archeo or something to host things like that. But then I was thinking, well, then I don't know, like, then the node operators are sacrificing yield anyway, and then maybe that's a centralization risk if nodes went to
Yeah,
start using that.
if
So
as soon as you move away from everybody running their own infrastructure to people paying somebody else to run their infrastructure, you can only go. You can either be equal in your decentralization, meaning that everybody pays somebody else to do it, but somebody else is always somebody else that nobody else is using. That would maintain kind of the same decentralization as we have now. But as soon as two operators use the same provider of data, now you're going down in decentralization in theory, right? Um, so it doesn't help in terms of decentralization. It only really hurts in that scenario. But it's also like an economic choice for operators to decide for themselves what they want to do.
yeah, right. That's exactly what I was thinking too. Okay. So for those who are just catching up, just joining, see some new faces. Welcome everybody. Again, open stage. Anyone come up and ask any questions. We'd love to have you here. Limit swaps are going to be, they're not live. They are live, but they're turned off, and then they'll be turned on at some point soon. If there is no issues there, then hopefully rapid swaps will be going on 1 to 2 months. So Chad, let's go a future in time here. We got limit swaps, we've got rapid swaps, things are banging, are good. What would you like to see next for the protocol?
Uh, in terms of features, I would lean on memeless being next. That's going to be a part of 3.13. That's going to be a really good feature. I think it's going to create a lot more volume for the protocol and give people a cheaper way of trading on the THORChain network. I think that would be my biggest next feature after that, in terms of features. After that, I would be looking towards kind of addressing what Oleg was just saying, earlier about, how Near has, routes that we don't have, like, like Zcash and, Solana or whatever. And so making some changes in the protocol, allowing individual validators to support or not support any particular chain so that we can more quickly roll out more chains and give more routes. And then you pair that with intents so that you could trade any asset on THORChain, whether or not it has a pool or doesn't have a pool, doesn't matter. You can trade any asset on THORChain, any long tail, random shit token or meme token or whatever it is. I think that's the next big thing after I'm done with limits, rapids, and memeless.
Can you pair memeless with intents?
Absolutely, yeah. Memeless doesn't really care about what the memo is. Memo, like, let's say you can put any memo you want, arbitrarily any memo. So it doesn't have to be a swap. It could be an add liquidity if you really wanted it to be, right? It could be anything. But yes, it could totally do intents with memeless as well. So you could provide some random shit token and ask somebody to buy that token off you for Bitcoin, and you put in, how many Bitcoin you want to get out of it in a range of it between A and B. And A and B theoretically could be the same number if you really wanted to be. I don't think you would want to do that, but you could if you wanted to. Yeah, but you could use memeless for that as well.
So, okay, this is pretty huge, you guys. So, like, memeless, which is what I understand, it's, much simpler to have memeless swaps on there because it doesn't require nearly as much as maintaining infrastructure and, say, like a trust wallet or a ledger or something like that. And then with memeless, people then can use that, add it to their own site, and then with you combine that with intents, they literally can swap to any asset they want once we get to that point. Hello, send it, baby. Go ahead with the Coke.
Yeah, exactly.
So with the intents, does the intents only support the tokens of the tokens that we have as a blockchain, like ETH, all the ETH tokens, or because when I look at the near intents, they have a lot of different blockchains supported. So does the intents support blockchains, or they support the tokens that we have already connected with?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, so intents can only support assets that are on chains that we support. So we have however many chains today. What is it, 10 or 12 or whatever the number is? Any token on those chains intents can trade with. You can't just trade some random token like something on the SUI network, for example. Like, we don't support SUI yet. So we couldn't do intent on the SUI network until we added the SUI blockchain to our network. So we would basically try to not rush, but we would try to add a bunch of chains like SUI, for example, or Zcash or whatever. And we would create the gas asset pool, which we always do. The treasury would probably put in like, $100,000 per chain or something like this to kind of kick it off in a sense, give it some immediate liquidity. And then any chain on the SUI network would then be any asset on the SUI network would then be available to be traded on THORChain, whether it has a pool or doesn't have a pool.
Yeah, because I noticed that the near intents, they have a lot of different chains that they support. So are they just doing through one validator, or the entire blockchain supports? And what's the approach for THORChain? Are we going to have like a single node that supports Zcash, or we always adopt like a whole network supporting the Zcash?
I'm not sure how near intents work. To be honest, I've never even done a deep dive into its like nitty gritty of how it functions. I just never bothered because I'm focusing on what we're doing. But for us, I think the intent is that we would, the team would build a new chain client for, Solana or SUI or, whatever, Zcash, whatever it is. We would get that code merged into the Bifrost and release that code out to the community. And then an operator or series of operators would run that particular chain, just go ahead and like, broadcast a transaction saying, hey, I'm going to support, Zcash, let's just call it, right? And then once we have a basic number of nodes, I think the number will probably be 4. That's typically BFT requires is 4 nodes. And then you can add liquidity to the pool. We'll probably create a cap on that, so that if you only got like 4 nodes that are validating a particular chain, the maximum liquidity is like 100,000 rune or 50,000 rune, whatever the number is going to be per node. So you can't really steal profitably, because those nodes have have like 1 million each, instead of much more than the 100,000 or whatever. The most of the LP would be from the treasury, so the treasury would be taking the risk, and of course the treasury is going to be in collaboration with those nodes that are supporting, whether it be 9 Realms or somebody else or whatever it is. And then we would create like solvencies, external solvencies, like Soda Labs is working with the protocol. They're kind of like doing THORSec like work, and they would create kind of solvency checkers just to verify on top of those 4 nodes or 5 nodes or 6 nodes, whatever it is, to validate that the pools are solid or whatever and valid, whatever. But like in terms of like theft, like the only thing you can steal out of that pool really is the rune that's in the pool. You can't steal more than what's in it. And arbs can't arb the pool if there's no tokens to arb, right? Like if you fake tokens into the network, some fake Zcash tokens, for example, you can't send them out so the arbs can arb. So you actually can get stolen as much rune as in the pool. And with that, having a cap on liquidity of those kind of lower security kind of chains, you really can't get that much rune going in those things to make it profitable to steal, because we can always just rug the rune from the bond of those validators in a sense, right? And to be honest, we're not going to see a huge amount of like liquidity added for a lot of these kind of long tail chains anyway. Obviously, we see a lot of liquidity for like Bitcoin and Ethereum, but we're not going to see a fuck ton of liquidity, like $hundreds of million come in of liquidity on some random kind of long tail chain anyway. I don't think it really matters. Did I answer your question? Hopefully I did.
Yeah, I guess so, because at the moment you're running a deal that everybody has to support all the chains that the THORChain is taking on board. But in the future, we are just going to have like, hey, those 4 nodes are just going to have this X client for the chain running, and they will manage all those swaps from that chain, right?
It wouldn't be that clean, like in the sense of like, we're going to designate these 4 nodes or 5 nodes or whatever the number is. It's more of like these 4 nodes are probably going to be used as like the starter nodes, right, of any particular chain. Like, and like, as we add more chains, it gets more and more complicated as an operator to support that many chains, right? There's more opportunity for bugs or issues or, the other chain to, either halt or collapse or whatever. Like it's not easy to run a lot of daemons for a lot of different chains. And as you add more and more chains, it gets more and more difficult to do so. But those 4 nodes or 5 nodes or whatever might start the chain of like Zcash or whatever. But then anybody in the network, any other validator in the network can say like, I really like to support Zcash. I'm going to go ahead and download the Helm chart and just like start it up and then join in. And by joining in, by the way, you get the liquidity and the volume being traded on that chain. So there's going to be like an interesting balance that nodes you're going to have to look at and say like, well, how much fees are being collected on this chain, like Zcash, for example? How many nodes are sharing in the fees being collected on that chain? And does it make economic sense for me to add my node in there? Like, would I make a lot of money if I added support for Zcash, or I would make barely nothing? And that will be like an economic choice that individual operators are just going to have to choose. But by sharding, like kind of like who gets to secure which chains, just makes it more validator focused and allows us to scale easier to have more chains. Like, because if we told every validator that you have to run every fucking chain, the more chains we add, the more difficult that becomes for validators, right? The more work, the more infrastructure they're going to need, the more this, the more that. And giving them an ability to choose what they want to participate and what they don't want to participate in, I think just creates more of a kind of free market solution to how much security we want to provide for chain A versus chain B, based upon what the market tells us we should provide for that. If that makes
Yeah,
sense.
exactly. It makes perfect sense. It will make, like, let's say at the moment, CCAS is super hot. A lot of nodes would
Yeah.
maybe opt in to have the daemon for the CCAS, and maybe like 3 weeks later, there's not a lot of volume. It dies down, and then maybe people shut down because it doesn't make sense. It requires a lot of computing power. So
Yeah.
I am a bond provider, and let's say my node operator opts into, I don't know, support X chain, and he decides to steal the money. And what I've
Yeah.
noticed as a bond provider is that when the slashes happen, I lose out of the income, the revenue, but I never get slashed, as like I don't lose any bond that I have put up. Is there a
Right.
possibility to lose my bond as well? So I might.
Yes. Yeah. So there's two concepts of like slashing within THORChain. One is like slash points, right? And so you kind of like earn points during this churn, like during this, like since the last churn, you earn points just by just doing what you're supposed to do. And you get slash points, meaning like you get less points by doing something you're not supposed to do. Like, for example, not observing or being offline or like whatever, right? Something like this. If an event occurs where a transaction is observed on the outbound, like 10 Bitcoin was just taken out of, like, it was a transaction was signed and sent for 10 Bitcoin, but there was no like request for that 10 Bitcoin to be signed. Like the protocol didn't say, hey, send this 10, it just kind of fucking disappeared on its own. The network would observe that 10 Bitcoin left, and then they would get slashed their bond, not their points, but they would get slashed their bond. I think it's 1.5x the value of the Bitcoin. I haven't looked in that code in a long time. It used to be 3x, and I think we went down to 1x or 1.5x, something like this. So like you would lose your bond in that scenario. You just never see it because like it almost never happens in the protocol's history. Like, and every time it has happened, it's because of some bug in the system rather than somebody actually like signing a transaction and sending out illicit funds or whatever, and funds that aren't intended to actually leave. Usually it's been a bug there's some bug in the system that just kind of exposed that situation. But yes, slash points are different. That slashes your rewards. Slashing your bond happens when you remove assets from the network illegitimately.
Thanks for that. Thanks for that answer. Yeah, I was always wondering.
Oh, and there's two more ways, just for like interesting. There's two more ways to lose your bond. One would be to running two validators at the same time with the same private key, which has happened one time in the past where somebody had a backup server that they accidentally ran. So they had the primary server and the backup server running the same private keys, and what we call double signing the blockchain, which is not a good thing in a proof of stake network. So they burnt a ton of rune because they didn't realize what was happening. They lost like 100,000 rune or 300,000 rune, something crazy like this. So you can lose your bond by that method. And then the other way you can lose your bond is if you're trying to churn into the network and you're fucking up that churn, like you're not being a part of the keygen, or you're aborting the keygen or whatever it is, because you have no slash points to slash because you're outside of the network, you're trying to get in, you're not in it, the network will just slash your bond instead. That way, if somebody kind of leaves up some node maliciously, like we just slash their bond, slash their bond, slash their bond. And eventually, if it lives up long enough, they would just like their bond would go to basically zero, or at least at a low enough point where they wouldn't be selected to be churned in anymore.
Dude, nice. I love this. I love this that you make this extra effort just to make sure you cover all the bases. Thank you so much.
Yep. It took
Yeah,
a
and
long time to design this protocol. It's so fucking complicated, but we've put a lot of effort and thought into, every nuance and theoretical scenario to make sure we handle it the most logical way possible.
Yeah, guys, and that's why, that's why I always tell people this is one of the most complex and amazing protocols, just because we did the hard work and just constant wargaming, trying to think of all the different attack vectors and what if scenarios. And that's why THORChain is just robust it is today, because we think ahead. So kudos to not only the devs, but everyone out there, because everyone's contributed in some way. I did have a question with the discussion between you with the Coke. Okay, let's say that we go to the system where each node can choose what asset they're going to support. And by the way, sorry, Scott, we have a speaker up there. I'll get to you in just a second, Scott. But let's say, for example, we have Atom, right? Like, or Gaia chain that like it hard forks every 16 seconds, and the nodes are sick of it, right? They don't want to support it anymore. So what would happen theoretically? I don't think this would happen, but just to go to the theoretical edge case, nodes basically drop all support for a chain. What would happen to the assets inside the pool? How would it churn? Would it not be able to churn? What would happen there?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we have a concept within the code today that's called Ragnarok. And Ragnarok was there from the beginning. I remember writing that code, a very long time ago in 2019 or 2020, whatever it was. And the idea between Ragnarok is that when you break the BFT, Byzantine fault tolerance, which basically is a fancy way of saying when you're less than 4 nodes, the network goes into a Ragnarok status, which basically means it starts to eject all of its capital autonomously. Like we stop doing swaps, we stop adding liquidity, all its functionality basically just like turns off, and now it just starts just jettisoning all the liquidity of the protocol. Right, that includes LPs, and that includes bond as well, and it does it over a long period of time. It doesn't do it like in a single transaction or a few transactions. Each person gets like a series of like of the pie. So like it actually does it in a way that like you get like I forget the exact numbers off the top of my head. It's been such a long time, but like you get like 20% of your LP position in the first transaction, and then the second transaction you get like 25%, or I forget which direction it actually goes. I think it goes smaller each time. And the reason why it does that is in the scenario where we are short, where we don't have all the Bitcoin we're supposed to, where we're missing 10 Bitcoin. We kind of that doing it that way means that like we kind of democratize the losses in that scenario, that one guy doesn't get the 10 Bitcoin that he's owed, that rather than everybody gets a little bit less than what they're owed, just to kind of democratize the loss. So that's one of the features we'd have to actually change as part of this is that we have to change it so that Ragnarok can happen on a per chain basis. Right now it happens protocol basis. And we've done this live on the protocol when we kind of killed single chain chaosnet back in 2021. We actually executed the Ragnarok protocol and it watched it as it, started to eject over days all of its liquidity to every LP and bond and everything out there. But we have to make a change as part of this code change to support Ragnaroking just an individual chain. And in that scenario, it would, pause swaps or like not allow any new ones to come in at least. You wouldn't add more liquidity. It would probably kill off any intents that are like remaining to be open and just refund them if it can. And then it was to start all the LPs or just get their LP back, through a series of transactions. And then you wouldn't be able to like trade on it, and then we wouldn't even bother to churn it anymore because we don't have enough validators to do the churn,
Right. Okay. So, perfect. So it automatically goes to Ragnarok. Now, the reason why additionally I brought this up, a nuance here though, is if you have a pool, and let's say the app layer, they have secured assets that are redeemable by said pool. If it gets Ragnarok, then they're pretty much stuck with a secured asset, right?
Yes, that's a good question. I haven't thought about it, to be honest at this point. That's a good question to arise. We have to figure out how to do that because we're probably going to have like a Ragnarok call that the base protocol can call into the app layer and say, hey, you have these secured assets in your smart contract, like these, we'll just call it Tron assets, whatever it is. And we're Ragnaroking this chain because we lost consensus and we don't have enough nodes to continue it. And then we have to like get the app layer to do its own Ragnarok, right? Like of refunds or whatever it's got to do to do its work. Do you know what I mean? But that's going to be a complicated thing to do, and it's something I'm gonna have to work with the app layer on that. Ruji team.
Yeah. That's interesting.
It's a great question. It's a great question though.
Yeah. Yeah. I just, we add layers of complexity with the app layer. So, yeah, that's cool. Yeah. That's what I've always been thinking about for a while. It's just like how that all works. But, yeah. So, I hope that provides clarity, you guys. Unfortunately, Scott dropped. I was just going to get to him. Sorry about that, Scott, or maybe you rugged. I don't know. But if you're in the audience, you can request. I'll get you quickly. But I wanted to really make sure we hammered that home because if when we're approaching something juicy, I want to make sure that we flesh out before we change topics here. Um,
Yep.
okay. Let's see here. Yeah, guys. So I think it's a pretty dope space, if I may say so myself. I mean, you guys got to imagine with memeless and then Intense coming. I mean, at that point, we're gonna have the THORChain our own interface, right? But then people can once you have like a memeless swap, like a memeless interface generator, which basically empowers people to have it on their own website. I mean, then THORChain basically spreads everywhere, right? Which has kind of always been the desire. So I'm very, very excited for the future, guys. So I hope you guys are getting excited because I'm getting excited. It takes a long time when you're dealing with something as complicated as THORChain to really think of all the ins and outs, but we are getting there. So, and then I didn't even mention the app layer in that. The app layer is a whole other thing. And then, you have all these point of sale devices being built on top of our infrastructure. Hello, let's go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, man. Okay.
Be interesting though. Like once we have memeless out there, we can create like an iframe or like a widget where other websites can embed into their website like our swapping kind of functionality. Do you know what I mean? And they can embed their own affiliate on there, and they can add 5 basis points, whatever it is. So like any website could build a swapping UI within their somewebsite.com, and then get a kickback for it just by copying and pasting some code and just throwing it into the browser. Like it would be so minimal amount of work for the integrator to do it. It would be a copy and paste with a couple configurations, and they could have support layer one swaps on their website, whatever that is.
Right. Exactly. Sorry. Exactly. And this gets me really excited because this is in line with the ethos of sorry, I'm coughing. In line with the ethos of THORChain becoming the infrastructure everywhere. I've always believed in that ethos, and we're there because we're basically I don't like democratizing. We're making the power of THORChain ubiquitous, and
Mhm.
anyone can use it. And the simpler we make that, the better, right? And then people can. I think if you're a business and if customers use your swapping interface, you can give them perks as well related to the business. So there's just so many second, third, and fourth tiers of this. Let's go.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to give another call out to the audience, guys. If you have any questions whatsoever, please come up, request. This is your time. Thank you with the Coke for allowing me to blow my nose and cough off the mic here. I appreciate that. Otherwise, it'd been a very annoying space. Perfect. Okay. Yeah, I think I've went through my list here, Chad. I can't really think of anything else. It's a really bullish future, I think. Of course, I'm biased, but I'm
Yeah.
shamelessly biased. If after Memeless, do you have any other ideas?
After memeless, we're doing memeless inbound, outbound, and internal. So it's like a three-parter to that one. I'm hoping all three will be done in 313. That's my goal at least. Which is the next release after the one we're currently trying to cut right now. And then after that, it's just I think I'm going to be start focusing um, on this kind of opt-in security model for chains and getting intense going. It should be I'm not sure. I feel like it's going to be a fairly easy feature to implement, but I feel like I'm going to be eating my words later. It's going to get more complicated than I thought. But I'm expecting that will be done. I don't know, probably by the end of the year. I'm hoping, like from a coding perspective at least, maybe not on chain, but from my perspective of writing the code and testing it. Um, After that, I think it's just focusing on batch outbounds and DKLS is something we're keeping an eye on, switching from GG20 to DKLS, which is a faster and safer, more cryptographically secure kind of cryptography for MPC. Keeping an eye on that. We're waiting on something called identifiable aborts, which none of the current libraries support that right now, unfortunately, which kind of sucks. But we've been talking to different teams to get them to implement it on our behalf so we can get it done. But that's an important feature for us.
Oh no, Chad rugged. Gotta get him back up here. He was baking there, man. I was getting really excited.
Yeah, he was pushing hard. But yeah, guys, listen up. I think a lot of people don't understand like the change that is going to happen. Because back in days how THORChain was, like the idea of THORChain was like, hey, we have this like infrastructure and everybody can build on top of it. Like we will spread like a wildfire. But the issue was that it was really complex. It's not the easy task to be an aggregator, to build up on top of THORChain, build a wallet. But now we're shifting gears, guys. Now every influencer can be like a shield for the THORChain, basically, in a good way, shield, like a push the decentralized democracy. Like every other crypto influencer, they have the Bybit link in the THORChain. I mean, they have the Bybit in their description, YouTube videos, but now they can have basically their own website. And it's going to be almost as easy as having a Bybit link there. So it's a game changer.
Heck yeah. Hey, Chad, I think you're back up. You want to test your mic?
Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know what the hell happened.
Yeah,
got,
me neither,
got
dude.
booted off the stage for some reason.
It rugged you hard. That was like the biggest bitch slap I've ever seen when it comes to rugging. It was immediate. It didn't even, you weren't even getting the robotic voice. It was saying you're done. But you were just talking about DKLS. You want to leave our go and continue from there?
Yeah, I was just saying that DKLS is one of the things like I think we're interested in doing. It wouldn't be like a big feature in the context of like liquidity or capital efficiency or volume. I think that it's just about security. But in theory, we should be able to reduce our Asgard sets from like 6 Asgards per churn. I think we could probably go down to a single Asgard. So we have one giant vault, which with that comes like a bunch of changes to the protocol that we can kind of like, we can start like ripping shit out we don't necessarily need anymore, right? Like for example, we have the effective max bond, which I think is like right now like around like 1 million room, whatever it is. And we have it there in part because we don't want vaults to be wildly different from each other in terms of security. We want them to be as reasonably level to each other as possible for a handful of reasons. But if we can get rid of that effective max bond because we only have one vault anyway, it doesn't matter anymore. Then like a single node can, instead of running 5 different nodes or 30 different nodes, whatever the hell the number might be, they can just run one single node and have a 30 million bonded in that scenario instead of having 1 million bonded per node. So like a handful of things we can kind of like, a lot of code we can kind of rip out, which makes me excited because we can like remove a lot of complexity from the protocol, which is nice. But yeah, there's lots of things happening. I'm most excited about the limit swaps, rabbit swaps, and memeless. Those are the things that I'm like in the immediate future, at least in my book. And then the long tail chains and assets. That's the second part. After that, we're just more focusing on like DKLS and other features that aren't really good for volume, but they're good for security or improving code quality or maintainability or something like this.
One thing I think I'll mention, because I addressed this point many spaces ago. I think maybe there might be some people in the audience who think, okay, well, if you went to one Asgard vault, is that more risk because it's like one big honeypot instead of like multiple Asgard vaults? And the answer to that, I don't want to save a little time here, so we'll come to then, is no, it does not add a layer of complexity. In fact, I think, Chad, would it not actually help with decentralization? Because if you went to one node with 30 million rune, right? They're only doing one sign. They're not running multiple of the same nodes. So it actually helps.
Right. Like from a threshold signature GG20 cryptography mentality, every individual participant has equal kind of share of the key, the private key, so to speak. So whether you have 30 million rune or 1 million rune or 300,000 rune,
with the Coke, did he rug or is it just me?
No, he rugged again.
Gosh, dang it. X does not like this alpha at all. X doesn't like when we drop the alpha, guys. It is what it is. It's just too powerful. They get insecure. They get nervous. All right, I'm going to pause for a second, get them back up.
Yeah, but it was a perfect question because I had same thing as well. Somebody from the outside may think as well, like, hey, we have only one vault now. we used to have like 6. So is it more secure? Is it not? So perfect question from you, Patriot.
Yeah, it helps because I'm a dumb person, so I know how dumb people think. So I know how to ask questions um, to help
Yeah, we
to
make
get out
perfect
of it.
team. Two dumb persons, we make perfect team.
Exactly, buddy. That's how it is. Oh gosh, did he like fully rug from the space? Shoot. Maybe the intern can get him back up here. Well, while we have up here, let's do a few shout outs in the audience. Cal, I gave you some love earlier. I think you just joined. Thank you so much for covering me yesterday, dude. I was mega sick, so I really appreciate you. I know I thanked you, but I like to do it with my own voice. You're the man. We're gonna try and get Chad back up here, you guys. And again, the space is open if anyone has any questions or anything like that. Now's the time. One thing that I wanted to ask Chad, I hope we get him back soon, was, you know, there's like when you go to like DKLS, right? That is a very big change. Okay. And I wanted one thing is I think some people get afraid of big changes, as you should, right? Because you can have terrible bugs. Like, you know, obviously when we did limit swaps, it was some consensus failure caused by a different part of the code that wasn't even related to limit swaps, which is weird, right? So one thing I wanted to ask Chad was, what is the standard for a good redundancy? Like if they release DKLS and just, you know, the friggin' protocol just takes a massive dump, you know, on itself. What's the process of them reversing that? That's one thing I wanted to ask. And then after that, I wasn't too sure on on questions. I think we've been pretty thorough today. Like we said, it's all signal, very little noise up here. So that's how we roll. Gosh, I hope we can get him back. But if he's permanently rugged for whatever reason, I think that's a good spot. At least gives me some content for the following week, right?
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's full of alpha, no noise. Maybe if we can, maybe LeoDex or Carl can come up on the stage and just share us about how has the week been, or 2 weeks doing the perps, Rujira perps. How has it been? Because I'm actually interested to see this because there's no dashboards to see how much volume they pull, how's the experience. Because the idea is to have a lot of LeoDexes that have the Rujira perps in as the underlying protocol. So let's hear from the mouth of the first one.
Yeah, if he gets up here, hey CK Cardano, how you doing? We're coming towards the tail end of the space. What's going on, man? What you got for us?
Yeah, man. Well, thank you so much for having me up here, bro. I really just wanted to jump up here for a second to shout out what THORChain's building, what Rune's building, what LeoDex is building, what Maya Protocol is building. Because, man, I really believe that the future of freedom for the people is in these decentralized freedom liquidity pools. For real, for real. Think about this, man. When we talk about, oh, DeFi is so small, Wall Street's like $100 trillion and we're only so small. But think about this. The 1% owns 99% of Wall Street. So if you really think about what we need to have cooking in DeFi to create a robust, decentralized global freedom liquidity network is a couple of $1 billion. Called LeoDex.
Oh,
so I just want to say shout out to that, guys. And I think that there is exponentiation of value creation when you look at the arbitrage that exists. I'll land the plane here. Please do what you can, redouble your efforts to support Cardano ADA, because I look every day at the arbitrage between Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Cardano. The UTXO Freedom Trinity, 21. You save with 21 million Bitcoin, you spend with 84 million Litecoin, and you build with 45 billion ADA. And now this Halloween,
dude, continue. That was totally my bad.
No worries, bro. No worries. I'll land the plane there. So again, it's hard cap supply assets, bro. Because look, even land of the free, powers that be coming after our people and our money, right? So I am so grateful that Litecoin just celebrated 14 years of uptime, and I'm grateful for my Litecoin bags. But you know what? I want to be able to use THORChain to get some of that arbitrage from my Litecoin and my Bitcoin. And I want to connect my Cardano, guys. Because, dude, we got midnight coming, Halloween. We got Bitcoin DeFi unlocking. You know, we have one-click lending and borrowing already with Bitcoin DeFi on Cardano, and that's only getting faster. So I'm already having those conversations about how can we integrate THORChain into like Cardano and Bitcoin DeFi infra. That to me is the long game, guys. Because honestly, with love and respect, it isn't about America or Nepal or Argentina. It's about us all. So thank you, THORChain. Thank you, LeoDex, Maya Protocol. Keep building, guys. You are the hope that I see for all of us. Trust your gut, the grand unified UTXO theory. Again, I'll land the plane on this. We save with 21 million Bitcoin. We spend with 84 million Litecoin. We build with 45 billion ADA, and we be with 24 billion Night. And my friends and family out there with Doge, with Zcash, with DashPay, guess what those are? UTXO-based assets. So they fit under the grand unified UTXO theory umbrella, guys. Even Caspa, guys. I don't hold any of it, but it's UTXO-based, has a hard cap supply. Freedom. Let's get it.
Very cool, man. And yeah, I didn't mean to mute you. Someone requested and then they unrequested, and so it's superimposed and then the mute button. So I feel like a dick, but that perfectly said, man. And yeah, love it, dude. Absolutely. What you said about Cardano. Okay. Sorry, my voice is starting. I'm starting to get cough more. Not a good sign. LeoDex, Cal, is that you? Welcome to the thing, man. What I think with the Coke wanted to know how the perp dex is going, and I do as well. How's that going, man?
Hey, yeah, thanks for having me. It's been fun to listen to you guys. Yeah, the perpdex stuff has been really fun. It's been an interesting journey to integrate. Took us a few weeks of just kind of being super deep in the trenches. I know I got a few XDMs that people saw. You know, we got a little quieter, and it really was just us kind of in the trenches getting everything working. So. So far, I'm very happy with it. Many people may not actually know this, but there actually isn't the ability to earn affiliate fees for UIs for Rujira perps at the moment. So we've integrated this, you know, and I see it as a way to kind of push the perps forward because I have been kind of evangelizing this idea that you know, and I mean, it's not like I'm some kind of genius for saying this. I mean, you can look at Aster and Hyperliquid and all these other perp dexes that are coming out. You know, the real next, you know, $10 billion a month in THORChain volume, in my opinion, is going to come from perps. So I just want to see perps grow on THORChain, and that's why we added it to LeoDex. You know, we actually literally earn nothing from it. So I just think that perps are a good thing to have, and want to make the UX as good as possible so we can start kind of getting some users from, you know, Aster and Hyperliquid and other places. So grow the perps and get the leverage bigger. I mean, these degens want 100x leverage. So right now the perps are only 4x leverage, and it needs scale in order to get bigger. So it's kind of one of those chicken and egg problems, and I wanted us to toss our hat in the ring in terms of UX and see if we can push that along.
Sounds good, guys. Sounds good. Awesome. And I love that, Cal. Thank you so much for that update. You know, everyone, you're a very popular interface for many reasons, specifically jumping to help be a speaker position of which I volunteered you for. So thank you, dude. You guys, I think Chad's permanently rugged. Unfortunately, you guys know how it is. I'm starting to feel a little worse as I'm still sick. So because Chad's gone, I think what we're gonna do is we're probably gonna wrap it here. Just so you know, I can get my voice. I have a space tomorrow, and I have a space on Saturday. It's gonna be the Litecoin space, and then tomorrow I'm gonna reach out to more Litecoin guys. I think Litecoin Johnny is gonna be able to join us, but he has a conflict with his children or something on the schedule. What happens, and I ain't gonna give anyone shade because you know, I got sick and I had to completely bounce out of one space. So life is what it is. But I'm gonna work on that tomorrow. But I'm gonna go ahead. We're gonna wrap it here, you guys. Thank you all so very much for coming up and speaking. And so yeah, really excited. So all right, guys, take care. Good space. Bye bye.